Exmoor, one of the few natural wildernesses left in England today. Like great sentinels, its hills watch over a wild seascape where the turbulent waters of the Bristol Channel meet with the lonely expanses of the Atlantic Ocean. The massive cliffs seem to suggest that this is the very place where southern England shrugs a great shoulder at the edge of the world. The hills themselves reflect an environment that is both as lonely as the ocean and as intimate as an English garden. Sharing this intimacy with the landscape are the wild red deer, which make up England's last large herd. Exmoor is a place of contrasts. Up here on the high tableland, the moors seem to be unpunctuated in their vastness. And yet, a short walk can bring you to a sudden unexpected ravine or coombe, deep, wooded, and always with its brook or stream fast flowing along the valley floor. In geological terms, Exmoor is an ancient place. Its Devonian grits and sands were originally laid down some 350 million years ago on the bed of a primeval ocean. Then some colossal upheaval gradually pushed the compressed rock upwards to become the basis of the moor we know today. Since then, the landscape has been carved by the elements. But water has had the biggest say in the lay of the land. The great peat bogs on the high moors can only take so much rain. And then begins the race to the sea, whether it's the short run north to the Bristol Channel or at a slower pace south through the lowlands of Devon to the English Channel. Here at Watersmeet, the mighty power of Exmoor's rivers is at its most dramatic. High above the 1,000-foot contour, a boggy region known as the Chains forms the catchment area which feeds the rivers in these deep ravines. This area is literally one of the wettest places in England, but after 6 weeks of heavy rain in the late summer of 1952, even these moors became oversaturated. The cascade of water which ploughed its way down these deep northern ravines resulted in Exmoor's most terrible tragedy. More than 30 people from the villages of Barbrook and Lynmouth lost their lives in the flood. The southerly running waters of the moor tend to be more gentle in their race to the distant southern sea. Here at Lanarker Bridge, the River Barle takes a broad, easy sweep on its way through the high moor. So this then is Exmoor, the high tableland cut by wooded combes and ravines made by rivers which run at an easy pace away to the south, or which tumble rapidly to the great sea cliffs of the north. It took many millennia for man, already well established in the rest of Europe, to find his way to the rich hunting grounds of Exmoor. First the Stone Age people with their flint instruments, then the Bronze and afterwards the Iron Age found their way to the high plateau. And the remains they left behind are still with us today. Perhaps the most evocative reminders of those distant days are these lonely standing stones, which can be found dotted all over the moor. But the ancient people left more elaborate puzzles for the archaeologists. No one really knows what could have been the reason behind the building of this stone row at Culbone, which stretches from the top of the hill down towards a spring. Nor can they fathom the purpose of this stone circle at Porlock Common. And if Exmoor's ancient remains are not as monumental as some others in Britain, it's for the simple reason that there's no large stone available on the moor. Added to this, the soft peat has swallowed up many of the existing stones over the centuries. Other noticeable remains left by the ancient people include these barrows, which mark the burial places of leaders and tribal chiefs. Many of these barrows contained cremation urns, with an occasional stone-lined grave or kist, like this one near the village of Luxborough. The cairn of stones, which used to cover it, was taken away by local road menders at the beginning of this century, and the skeleton of the chieftain who lay inside was inaptly moved to nearby Treeborough churchyard for a Christian burial. Other remains include a number of earthworks which the Bronze and Iron Age peoples built for their own protection. This hill fort, known as Cow Castle, built on a steep-sided knoll by the banks of the Barle below Simmonsbath, is perhaps one of the best known on Exmoor. The ramparts of another strategically placed enclosure are to be found here near Selworthy Beacon. The soft earth banks of Bury Castle have taken perhaps 3,000 years to wear down to their present height of 10 or 15 feet. These ramparts may look roughly the same, but they may be 1,000 years more modern. Old Barrow was built by the Romans as part of a wide-ranging series of signalling stations. The Romans also left their mark, literally, on this inscribed stone on Winsford Common. It bears the name of Caractacus, a fearsome British warrior who battled against the invading Roman legions. Exmoor's coastline was the stage set for the next historical drama, in which some very odd characters had parts to play. According to folklore, this hobby horse, as it's still known today, could have been a secret weapon in the fight against marauding Vikings and Danes. Coloured rags are stitched onto what could easily be the ribs of a small boat. And the belief is that no sooner had the pillagers reached Minehead shores one evening than they turned heel and fled to their longboats, having seen what they thought was a monster. It was only a local fisherman carrying his small coracle-like boat upside down over his head, but seeing the effect this had on the Vikings, the locals developed their secret weapon, and this became the basis of the hobby horse. But other people say the horse has far deeper origins than that, especially on May Day, when local maidens are selected for this bizarre performance, called the booting, said to originate in fertility rites of the Middle Ages. Perhaps the Northmen were easily fooled, but the clear-headed, military-minded Normans were not. They came and built their manors and castles like the famous one at Dunster. The building we see today bears little resemblance to the original Norman fortification, glimpses of which can be seen among the major refurbishment work carried out halfway through the last century. But it goes without saying, the village of Dunster is steeped in history. Few visitors to the area will have missed either the castle or the old yarn market, but many will be surprised to learn that the village once had its own seaport. Now a landlocked lake, known as the Horn, this lagoon once offered a haven to the early merchantmen who plied their trade along the Bristol Channel. Indeed, some were so glad of the refuge they would offer prayers of thanks at St. George's, which is one of the oldest churches in the region. Christianity has been well represented on Exmoor. Among its low eastern foothills are the friendly walls of Cleve Abbey, founded by Cistercian monks some 800 years ago. Over the years, most villages and even many hamlets managed to build their own houses in praise of God. Often they were in remote and fairly inaccessible places, like for instance Culbone Church, situated in steep woods on the sea cliffs west of Porlock. It's believed to be one of the smallest complete parish churches in the country. The church here at Simmonsbath was built by one of Exmoor's most influential families. The knights, first John and then his son Frederick, set out to tame the high moor, transforming the old royal hunting forest into farmland. They made their home at Simmonsbath, and much of the permanent pasture land still used today owes its fertility to the far-sighted Knight family. However, not all their dreams came to fruition in the wilds of Exmoor. For instance, no one really knows why John Knight went to the expense of having this small lake dammed by 200 Irish navvies at the headwaters of the Bar. But it's believed he intended to use the water from Pinkery Pond to feed a trans-moorland canal, so that ore from his mines could be shipped to the sea. For generations until recently, miners have chipped away at the minerals which lie deep in the rock of the hills. In the heart of Exmoor are these ruins, which bear evidence of man's optimism when it came to dreaming of profits from iron ore. This mine, the Wheal Eliza, on the banks of the River Barle, which incidentally never turned a profit for its owners, has a sinister history. It recalls Exmoor's most gruesome murder, for here a desperate and alcoholic father, William Burgess, hid the body of his little daughter Anna in the year 1858. Burgess was afterwards caught and hung for the crime. The remains of old mine workings still exist all over the area, but nowhere on Exmoor did the Industrial Revolution take more of a hold than on the Brendan Hills. During the late 1800s, and indeed into the beginning of this century, the mines produced iron ore which was transported on a specially built railway line to the port of Watchet on the Somerset coast. Eventually, cheap foreign imports put the Brendan Hill mines out of business, and Exmoor has remained to this day free from the unsightliness of industry. Oddly, it was a young girl who put the moors far more prominently onto the map than any of the commercial comings and goings of man. In fact, a young girl who was a mere figment of one man's imagination. Richard Doddridge Blackmore was already a published poet and writer when, in 1869, he enjoyed a major success with his bestseller, Lorna Doone. And ever since, Exmoor has enjoyed worldwide recognition as the setting for the great romance, especially the area around the Ore Valley, where the book's hero, John Ridd, is supposed to have found and married Lorna, daughter of the wild, outlawed Doones. A work of imagination it certainly was, but there's no doubt that a hard-riding, lawless family had lived and made a bad name for themselves in these lonely marches a good century before Blackmore wrote his book. Inadvertently, the author had won fame for the area just at a time when some new creatures were beginning to roam the moors. The first modern-style holidaymakers, the Victorians, were beginning to get out and about. Places like Minehead, Lenton and Lynmouth, and Ilfracombe were becoming holiday resorts, attracting a plethora of early hotels and guest houses, which still survive today. This, of course, was the steam age, and access to previously inaccessible areas was made easy by a comprehensive railway network, the loss of which many people still mourn today. One of the Exmoor region's former GWR lines still survives, the West Somerset Railway, running for 22 miles from Bishop's Lydeard near Taunton, northwest to the coast at Watchet, and on via Blue Anchor and Dunster until it terminates on Minehead's seafront, is the longest privately owned railway line in Britain. It boasts a regular steam service, as well as diesel engine trains, and it nostalgically recalls the golden age of the great British seaside holiday. Exmoor has more than one ongoing link with the passenger transport of her past. Over the last 100 years, millions of folk from the industrial conurbations along the South Wales coast, up the Severn and over to Bristol and Avonmouth, have enjoyed days out on the Bristol Channel paddle steamers. Two marvellous old cruise steamers still survive to visit Bristol Channel ports throughout the summer months, thanks to the activities of a preservation society. There can be few better ways to see the majestic cliffs than from the decks of either the Waverley or the Balmoral on a summer evening's cruise. The precipitous stretch of coastline between Porlockweir and Lynmouth is probably less frequented by man than any other in the country. Here everything is on the perpendicular, like this waterfall near Sir Robert's chair. It's a place where gulls go to be lonely, as the poet said, and where also the shy Peregrine falcon patrols in her search for food. A place, too, where the soaring buzzard begins its hungry quartering of the moor. And so, from the sea cliffs upward and onwards across the great tableland begins the more secret and unseen world of Exmoor's wildlife. Perhaps most secret of all is the monarch of the glen himself. No one really knows how many wild red deer live on Exmoor, but what is accepted is that the numbers make up what is the last large herd in England. There could be as many as 5,000 in the region, or as few as 2,000. Opinions vary, and the experts are still counting. One of the best times of day to view deer is in the early morning, just after sunrise. They seem to be at their most relaxed at this quiet time of day. Here are timid creatures at the best of times. Even the slightest movement from the cameraman is worrying this hind. And again, it's a hind that gives the alarm signal. Winter is both a beautiful and a hard season on the high hills. Because of its southerly position close to the sea, the region is not quite as prone to Arctic conditions as are some of Britain's more northerly moors. But few winters pass without a snowfall, and at times like these the wild red deer can often be seen taking to the farmers' fields in search of food. Spring often rolls in with sea mists and showers. And dwellers on the moor, like these newts, have to wait for the first warm sunshine to stir them to the waterside. Newly-born deer calf spends the day in hiding, with nothing better to do than watch the summer sedges and grasses as he waits for the return of his mother. Enjoy their first run around the high meadows. beginning to range the hills. Even high on the chains, life stirs as these young kestrels learn to hover on an easy updraft. Down at sea level, shelduck are busy feeding on Porlock's rich marshes. And more than 1,500 feet above, on the slopes of Dunkery, Exmoor's highest hill, a skylark enriches the moorland sound with its beautiful song. Towards the end of summer, the light, downy seeds of the rosebay willow herb begin to take flight. Spiders make their webs in the increasing dew. And the fruits of the moor begin to show in nature's harvest. Rose hips are a delicacy for the birds, but perhaps whortleberries offer a crop most loved by mankind. Blackberries, of course, follow closely behind in the flavour ratings. But so too does another stranger crop which sees the murky light of day during the late autumn. Woodland fungi are not to everyone's taste, perhaps because some species, like these fly agarics, are poisonous. But others, like this hedgehog mushroom and these boletus, are edible and delicious. Edible or not, fungi of all sorts grow prolifically to decorate the damp Exmoor region. And while the fungi are sowing their spores in a bid for regeneration, so too are the red deer preparing to restock the herd. The mating call, or bolving as it is known, of a large stag announces the beginning of the rutting season. Another stag sees off a competitor who's been attempting to steal one of his harem of hinds. But for some months, the deer have had more to worry about than mating. By autumn, the hunting season is well underway. The question of whether hunting should or shouldn't be allowed leads to what is undoubtedly Exmoor's hottest debate. There are those who are for it, and those who are against. However, there's no doubt that the horse, whether or not it's used for hunting, has had a major effect on the region. For a start, there's the world-famous Exmoor pony. But it's the sporting horse, used in any number of events throughout the year, that has made itself into what is now an Exmoor industry. The annual Golden Horseshoe event is hard going for the hundreds of competitors who cross some of the toughest terrain in Britain on a hot summer weekend. Then there are the local horse shows or gymkhanas. It's all rather traditional, and even the spectators are expected to know their place.
Oh no, my godfather! Silly bloody lot!
Dark Spirit has taken a left-handed route through the footprint fence.
Away from horses, cricket is a popular summer sport in most parishes across the moor. And villagers also make a summertime date in their diaries for the annual parish fete. Village events like these are very largely supported by the local farming community. It's a hard life, but there's no doubt that agriculture today is a little easier than it was. Some farms, and in fact entire villages, like this one at Clickett near Timberscombe, just didn't make it. Sheep have always had an important role to play on Exmoor. As in many other parts of upland Britain, wool has historically been crucial to the local economy. Mutton, and nowadays lamb, has always kept the local butchers busy, and many swear by the flavour of the early autumn lambs being auctioned at this sale at Cutcombe.
90 same old, 450, £4 start. 3, 20, 20, 20, 20, 40, 20, 40, 60 hours. 20, 40, 60 was it. 3, 40 hours, 60, 20, 60, 80 now. At 20, 360, 80 now, sold away at 360. Steve Williams. 3, 20, 20 minutes. 20, 19, 23, 20 now. 20, 60, 80 now. 20, 360, 80 now, 360. Handle 360.
Number 8 on number 2. 18 and a half.
18 and a half, £3. 3 days, 20 now. 20, 20, 20.
It's a busy time of year for the Exmoor farmer. But the farmers aren't the only ones to reap a harvest. Though treacherous, the warm, shallow Bristol Channel can offer good catches to the fisherman, whether he's at sea or angling from the shore. But in recent years, man has begun to learn that he can't just take what nature offers without lending a helping hand. Aging trees need to be tended. And even rescued by the intervening hand of man. For millennia he lived with only the power to alter the moor with a sprinkling of a few stones. Then man learned how to bend the wilderness to his own will. Now he simply has to learn how to preserve Exmoor's wild beauty for the enjoyment of generations yet to come.